thought I knew my wife Leora better than anyone. Every laugh, every word, every glance, I believed it all. But one ordinary evening, a lie shattered everything I trusted, and the truth hit harder than anything I imagined. By the end of this story, you'll see karma works in ways we never expect. Before we get into it, hit like. Share this story with someone who appreciates real-life drama. And subscribe, because truth, betrayal, and karma make the most unforgettable stories. I remember the morning sunlight streaming through our apartment, lighting up Leora's hair like fire. She laughed as I spilled coffee on the counter, something I always seemed to do. Life had this ordinary perfection, the kind you read about but never think you'll really live. I was happy. I loved her. More than I could even explain to myself. And she loved me, or so I thought. The first crack came almost imperceptibly. Leora started coming home later than usual. At first, I told myself it was work. She always had so much on her plate. But then, subtle things began to unsettle me. A text message would pop up. Her hand would twitch when she hit her phone too quickly. Small, seemingly insignificant lies started weaving into the fabric of our days. She told me she was meeting a friend, but that friend didn't exist, or so it seemed. I kept telling myself I was imagining things. I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to suspect the person I loved more than life itself. Yet every instinct in me screamed that something was wrong. I found myself noticing details I never had before. The way she laughed a little too quickly at a message. The way her eyes darted when I asked a simple question. The faint scent of perfume that wasn't hers lingering in the air. I tried to confront my suspicions gently at first. "Are you okay?" I asked one night, watching her shift uncomfortably across the kitchen table. "You seem distracted." She smiled, a little too bright, and said, "I'm fine." "You worry too much, Revan." That smile should have reassured me, but it didn't. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was seeing only what she wanted me to see. A carefully constructed version of her that hid a truth far more dangerous. Days passed, and the tension gnawed at me. I replayed every conversation, every smile, every word she'd said. A simple lie, I realized, can snowball into something that swallows you whole. And I could feel it, the growing storm behind her eyes. It wasn't fear of being caught. It wasn't regret. It was something else entirely, the thrill of deception, the knowledge that she could bend reality for her own desires. And yet, amid the doubt, I still loved her. I wanted to believe her, even as every bone in my body whispered that I shouldn't. There was anger simmering beneath my calm, a restless storm of suspicion and heartbreak that I couldn't release. I was trapped between love and betrayal, hoping for a miracle that I knew wouldn't come. I didn't yet know that the person she had been hiding all along was someone I trusted, someone who would twist my world upside down. I didn't know that the next steps I took would lead me into the darkest depths of deception, heartbreak, and eventually the most satisfying reckoning I'd ever experience. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Every night as I lay in bed, I would replay the day's conversations in my mind, dissecting every word, every laugh, every pause. Leora had always been careful with her words. But now, there was a sharpness to her explanations, a polish that made me doubt everything she said. My stomach twisted each time her phone buzzed, and she'd pull it out of sight, fingers trembling slightly, eyes avoiding mine. It started small. A name here, a location. There are tiny inconsistencies that I might have overlooked in another life, but now burned like fire in my chest. She said she was visiting a colleague after work, but the address didn't match anything on her calendar. A friend she claimed to have dinner with didn't answer when I casually asked. My mind started connecting dots that weren't meant to be connected, every small lie feeding my growing suspicion. I tried to confront myself first. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe I was overthinking. But intuition, I realized, is rarely wrong. There were nights I'd watch her as she fell asleep, pretending to be lost in thought, but really observing. The way her phone rested too close to her body, the sudden tension when I moved too close, the subtle shift in her breathing whenever I asked, "How was your day?" It was as though she carried a secret too heavy to admit, and I could feel it pressing against every wall of our home. I began noticing patterns that I couldn't ignore. Leora started taking sudden late-night walks or solo errands that weren't on our schedule. A credit card statement appeared with a location I didn't recognize. Even mutual friends began to act differently around her. Small glances, knowing smiles that felt like a betrayal in themselves. And then there were the moments when she would brush past me, smiling faintly, almost smugly, as if she were hiding a private joke I wasn't invited to. I started to follow her quietly, under the guise of errands or walks of my own. My heart would pound, my hands would shake, and every step I took felt like stepping deeper into a storm. I wanted proof, but I also dreaded what I might find. Each time I caught a glimpse of her in places she hadn't told me about, I felt a mix of fear, rage, stub, and heartbreaker cocktail I could barely swallow without trembling. The worst part was the betrayal I felt from my own love. I had given her my trust completely, and yet I was being shown, piece by piece, that I had been living a lie. My mind oscillated between anger and despair. How could someone I loved so much hide an entire life from me? How could someone I trusted betray me so thoroughly? And in the midst of that growing storm, I realized something chilling. The person she was hiding, someone she had been seeing all along, was not just anyone. It was someone I knew, someone I never would have suspected. The revelation loomed over me like a shadow I could not escape, and I knew deep down that the next time I confronted her, the truth would hit harder than anything I had ever imagined. The night I discovered the truth is burned into my memory like fire. My hands were shaking, heart hammering so violently I thought it might burst from my chest. I had followed Leora again, pretending it was coincidence, a late-night errand I just happened to be on. But every step I took that night carried the weight of suspicion, dread, and a quiet, growing fury. I saw her before I realized she had seen me. Leora, laughing softly, the kind of laugh that once made my world feel safe, now twisted my stomach into knots. And beside her, there he was. Kaylin Vera, someone I had trusted, someone I never would have imagined could betray me. They weren't hiding in shadow, they were careless, close, intimate, oblivious to the destruction they were causing. My throat tightened. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to scream, but fear and disbelief froze me in place. Every gesture, every whispered word, every touch, all burned into me, searing my mind with the raw truth I had been too afraid to accept. Leora's smile, once the sun in my life, now felt like daggers. The person I had given everything to, the woman I had loved without reservation, had chosen to share herself with someone else. Someone I could see clearly, someone I knew. My entire world seemed to collapse in that instant, a quiet, horrifying implosion. I felt the urge to run, to confront them immediately, but something in me, a dark, controlled part, knew I had to see everything, know every detail before I acted. Every whispered laugh, every secret glance, it all became pieces of a puzzle I never wanted to complete. And yet, I did. I couldn't turn away. Every moment confirmed it. My marriage, my trust, everything I thought I knew about love had been built on deception. I remember the mix of emotions flooding me: rage, heartbreak, disbelief, shame, and a bitter, icy clarity. Rage that they had the audacity to do this right under my nose. Heartbreak that Leora, the woman I had loved with every part of me, could betray me so completely. Disbelief that someone I trusted, Kaylin, could sink so low. Shame for not seeing it sooner, for believing in them blindly. And above all, clarity. I saw the path ahead, the reckoning that would come, the justice that karma would deliver. That night I didn't speak. I didn't act. I watched, my chest tight, my mind racing, plotting silently. I had discovered the truth, and the truth was worse than I had imagined. I had been deceived by the two people I loved and trusted most. And the pain, sharp as it was, ignited something else in me, the undeniable, burning desire to see karma play out, to witness the consequences of their choices. By the time they parted ways, laughing softly as though nothing had happened, I was different. I was no longer the naive man who believed love alone could shield him. I was a man armed with truth, fueled by betrayal, and ready for the reckoning that I knew was coming. The storm had begun, and there was no turning back. I waited until Leora came home that night, my heart pounding like a war drum. Every step she took across the threshold felt heavier than a mountain. Every word she spoke pierced me in ways I wasn't ready for. The air between us was electric, loaded with unspoken truths that I could no longer contain. I didn't need to ask. I didn't need proof anymore. I knew Leora. My voice trembled, barely controlled, but sharp enough to cut through the room. She turned slowly, that familiar smile on her face, the one that once melted my soul. But tonight it felt like ice. We need to talk. Eyebrow, feigning curiosity, but I could see it in her eyes, the flicker of guilt. The tiny shadow she thought she'd hidden from me. About what? She asked lightly, trying to dismiss the tension. But I wasn't having it anymore. You lied to me, I said, my hands trembling, voice rising. Every excuse, every story, every moment you said you were somewhere else, it was all a lie. And I know who it's with, Leora. I saw it. Kalan Vera. The room went quiet. A dangerous silence. Her smile faltered, eyes widening, and for the first time, I saw her fear. Revan, it's not what you think, she started, but I cut her off. Not what I think. My voice cracked with fury. I watched you tonight. I watched you laugh, touch, and share everything with him. Everything I gave to you, my trust, my love, everything you threw away for him. She recoiled, and I could see the weight of my words hitting her like a physical blow. Rage coursed through me, raw and unrelenting. I wanted to scream, to shout, to make her feel every ounce of the betrayal she had inflicted. My fists clenched, shaking, not from weakness, but from the intensity of the storm inside me. You promised me honesty. You promised me love, I continued, pacing the room, unable to contain the torrent of emotions. And you, I slammed my hand against the wall, you lied every single day. Tears pricked my eyes, but they weren't the kind born of weakness, they were born of heartbreak, the crushing realization that the person I loved more than life itself had chosen someone else. She tried to approach me, to apologize, but I stepped back. My entire being screamed, "No, you don't get this back." And in that moment, I realized something. This confrontation wasn't just about anger, it was about clarity. It was about claiming the power she had tried to steal from me. I could feel the tide turning, my heartbreak coalescing into cold, resolute determination. Karma wasn't mine to enforce, yet it had already begun. I stood there, shaking, chest heaving, staring at the person who had shattered my world. And in the quiet aftermath of my fury, I knew that the reckoning was inevitable. Not from me, but from life itself. After the confrontation, the house fell into a suffocating silence. Leora retreated to the other side of the room, her face pale, her excuses dying in her throat. I could feel the echo of my own anger pulsing through the walls, but beneath that rage, something colder began to take shape. A steadiness, a clarity, a purpose. Revenge wasn't something I had ever imagined myself capable of. I wasn't a man of chaos or cruelty, but betrayal changes you, reshapes your boundaries, it sharpens your senses. It forces you to confront the parts of yourself you never thought you'd touch. That night, as I lay awake staring at the ceiling, the weight of everything pressing down on me, I made a decision. I wouldn't act out of blind rage. I wouldn't scream or break things or throw my life into chaos the way they threw away my trust. No, I would let truth do its work. Truth, when revealed at the right time, is its own form of justice. I started by gathering everything. Every message, every lie she told, every moment she slipped out, pretending she had somewhere else to be. I pieced together the timeline with a slow, painful precision. My hands shook sometimes, not from anger, but from the realization of how deeply she had deceived me. Each screenshot, each detail, became a weapon not forged from violence but from honesty. The truth they hid would be the truth that destroyed them. I didn't confront Kalen directly. I didn't need to. People like him thrive in shadows, in the secrecy of stolen moments. Dragging him into the light would do more damage than anything I could ever say. And so, I reached out to the people whose trust he relied on, colleagues, friends, the very circles where he built his reputation as a loyal man. A few anonymous messages, a few carefully placed truths, and suddenly whispers began spreading like wildfire. Leora tried to speak to me, tried to apologize in fragments, but her words bounced off me like dull stones. I had no desire to forgive her, not yet, maybe not ever. I responded only when necessary, my voice calm, controlled, almost unsettlingly steady. The more I withdrew, the more frantic she became. She could feel it, karma inching closer with every hour. I watched her crumble slowly over the next few days. Her phone buzzed non-stop with messages she avoided opening. She paced the house with trembling hands. She grew quieter, more anxious, as though the very air around her had turned against her. And I realized something powerful. I didn't need to destroy her. I didn't need to lift a finger beyond revealing the truth. Karma was already moving. The universe was already correcting the imbalance she and Kaylin created. Revenge wasn't rage. It wasn't violence. It was clarity. It was stepping back and letting consequences do what they were born to do. And I stood there, silent, steady, watching their world unravel, not because I forced it, but because betrayal always carries a price. The days that followed felt surreal. Leora's carefully constructed world was collapsing piece by piece. I watched it unfold with a strange mixture of detachment and satisfaction. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. I simply observed. Karma, it seemed, had a rhythm of its own, and I was finally witnessing it. The first cracks appeared in Kellen's life. I heard whispers from mutual friends, colleagues, people who had once admired him or trusted him blindly. Suddenly, the man who had walked around with an air of superiority, believing no one would see through him, found himself exposed. The same charm he wielded to manipulate had turned against him. Invitations disappeared. Opportunities vanished. People questioned his integrity, and all the while, he didn't know why. That was the beautiful part. He didn't understand that his own actions had orchestrated his downfall. Leora was next. She tried to salvage what she could, to charm and apologize, to justify her choices. But words were meaningless in a world now fueled by truth. Her attempts at control failed, and each day, the weight of her deception pressed harder against her. I could see it in her eyes, the flicker of panic, the realization that she could no longer manipulate outcomes, no longer hide behind lies. She had built her life on deceit, and the very foundations were crumbling beneath her. I felt a strange clarity, an emotional peace that I hadn't expected. The heartbreak, the rage, the betrayal they had, all led me here to a place where justice wasn't forced. It existed naturally. I had been the victim, yes, but I also became the witness to the consequences of actions that could not be hidden. And in witnessing it, I realized that karma isn't about revenge, it's about balance. It's the truth catching up with those who try to run ahead of it. There was a moment, quiet and almost serene, when I understood that my life could move forward. I didn't need Leora, and I didn't need Kaylin. Their choices had freed me in a way I hadn't anticipated. I could breathe again, unburdened by deceit, unbound by someone else's selfishness. The love I once thought was forever had ended, but it left behind a stronger version of me, someone who knew the cost of betrayal and the power of clarity. I let myself feel the release, the grief, the anger, the sorrow. They all poured out at once, and then faded into something steadier. A sense of balance settled in. Life had a way of correcting itself, and I had survived the storm. I had endured the betrayal, faced the deception, and watched the universe deliver its own justice. And as I stood there, alone but unbroken, I knew something essential. The world had shifted. The people who tried to destroy me had unraveled under the weight of their own choices. Karma had its way, and I had the privilege of witnessing it. I didn't seek vengeance, it came naturally. And in that natural, undeniable reckoning, I found my peace,